Hello, my friends, and welcome back to English Unlocked. This is your winter podcast, a calm and peaceful space where you can relax, breathe, and let English become a natural part of your day. My name is Daniel, and today I invite you to slow down with me for a moment. Life can move quickly, especially in winter, when days feel shorter and our minds get filled with constant plans, tasks, and responsibilities. But here, right now, you don't need to hurry. You don't need to focus on rules or grammar. You don't even need to think too much. All you need to do is listen. Winter has a beautiful way of quieting the world. When snow falls, even busy streets become softer, calmer, more gentle. And just like that snow, this podcast is designed to bring you a little peace, a pause from the noise around you. English doesn't have to be stressful. It can be soothing, warm, and comforting, just like a slow walk through a quiet winter evening. In today's episode, I'm going to tell you a winter story filled with stillness, soft moments, and quiet reflections. It's not about holidays or celebrations. It's simply about winter itself and the calm it brings. This story is meant to help you relax while gently improving your listening skills. The more you absorb the rhythm of English without pressure, the more natural it becomes. So take a deep breath with me. Feel your shoulders relax. Let the cold outside stay where it is, and allow this warm moment to be just for you. Maybe you're listening during your commute, maybe during a walk, or maybe at home with a warm drink in your hands. Wherever you are, I want you to feel welcome here. You are part of this journey, a journey toward feeling confident and comfortable with English. In a moment, I'll begin the first part of our winter story. It will be slow, gentle, and full of soft details that bring the scene to life in your imagination. Try not to force anything. Let the words paint pictures in your mind. Let the calm energy of winter settle into your breath. This is your time, your moment to pause, to listen, and to grow quietly. When you're ready, let's begin our story. Before we begin our winter story, I want to take you a little deeper into the feeling of this season. Not the busy, stressful version of winter, but the quiet one. The winter that lives between moments, in soft sounds, in slow breaths, in small details we often forget to notice. Winter has a rhythm of its own. It isn't loud. It doesn't rush. It doesn't demand anything from us. Instead, it invites us into stillness, into a space where we can finally hear ourselves again. Imagine for a moment that you're walking down a quiet street just after sunset. The sky isn't dark yet. It has that soft blue glow that appears only in winter, a color that feels both cold and comforting at the same time. Snow rests gently on rooftops and branches, smoothing out every rough edge. Streetlights shimmer in the frost, creating halos of warm light against the cool air. Your footsteps make a soft crunch with every step, but even that sound feels peaceful, almost meditative. The world is quieter than usual. Cars move slower, people speak softer, and time itself feels stretched, like the day is taking one long, slow breath before settling into night. Maybe you pull your scarf closer to your face. Maybe you notice the way your breath curls into the air like a small silver cloud. Maybe you look up and watch snowflakes falling, each one drifting at its own pace, each one unique, each one disappearing the moment it touches your skin. This is winter's gift. A moment to pause, without having to explain why. In this stillness, we begin to notice things we usually overlook. The sound of wind moving through bare branches. The warm glow from windows where people gather with their families. The distant hum of a city preparing for rest. And somewhere in this calm, you might feel something shift inside you. Not dramatically, not loudly. Just a small, gentle movement, an opening, a softening, a sense of returning to yourself. This is the space where today's story lives. In the quiet. In the breath between moments. In the beauty of simply noticing the world as it is. So before we step into the first chapter of the story, allow yourself to arrive fully in this moment. Let the sound of my voice guide you. Let the rhythm slow you down. Let winter wrap around you like a gentle blanket. Now, take one more slow breath. And when you're ready, we'll move into the next part, a reflection that leads us even closer to the heart of the story. As we continue settling into this quiet winter moment, I want to invite you to reflect on how this season affects us, not just on the outside, but on the inside as well. Winter has a way of slowing life down, but it also slows our thoughts, our emotions, and our expectations. It gives us a chance to step away from the noise and return to something more simple, more honest, more human. There's something almost sacred about winter evenings. They encourage us to look inward, to notice how we truly feel, to recognize the small things that often get lost in the rush of daily life. When the world outside becomes still, it becomes easier to listen to the quiet inside ourselves. Maybe you've experienced moments like that. Moments when you sit by a window with a warm drink, watching the snow fall slowly, and suddenly you feel a peaceful kind of clarity. Not because anything special happened, but because, for the first time in a long time, you allowed yourself to just be. Winter reminds us that not every moment needs to be filled. Not every question needs an answer. Not every silence needs to be broken. Sometimes silence is exactly where we find what we didn't know we were looking for. Think for a moment about the last time you felt truly calm. Not excited, not distracted, but calm in a deep, steady way. Maybe it was during a long walk. Maybe it was while listening to music. Maybe it was sitting alone in a peaceful place, without anyone asking anything of you. Those moments stay with us even if we don't talk about them. They become anchors, reminders that peace is possible even in busy seasons of life. And winter is full of such anchors. There is comfort in the way snow softens the world. There is beauty in the glow of distant windows. There is meaning in the rhythm of footsteps on a quiet road. There is connection in small acts of kindness, even between strangers who never speak. This is the emotional landscape of the story you are about to hear. It isn't a story about grand events or dramatic turns. It's a story about small moments that matter. Because sometimes the smallest moments are the ones that stay with us the longest. You will meet a character tonight, someone gently moving through his life, someone noticing things he might have missed before, someone discovering a connection in the quiet of winter. His experience is simple, but not ordinary. It reminds us that magic doesn't always appear loudly. Sometimes it appears softly, quietly, in a notebook left on a bench, in a line written by a stranger, in a moment of stillness we didn't expect. Before we begin the story, I want you to take one more slow breath. Feel your shoulders loosen. Feel your mind soften. Let go of anything that pulled your attention earlier today. You don't need to multitask. You don't need to force yourself to understand every word. Just listen. Let the rhythm of the story flow through you like snow drifting through the air. In a moment, we will begin the first part of the winter story. The part where the quiet world meets a quiet soul and something gentle begins to unfold. When you're ready, let's step into the story together. The story begins on a quiet winter evening, the kind of evening when the world feels slower and the air carries a soft, cold glow. A fresh layer of snow had fallen earlier that day, covering the streets with a smooth, untouched blanket that sparkled under the streetlights. Every sound seemed muted, footsteps, distant cars, even the wind. It was as if the whole city had taken a deep, peaceful breath. Evan walked home along his usual path, his hands tucked into his coat pockets, his scarf wrapped loosely around his neck. He liked winter evenings like this. They made him feel as if time had stretched out just a little, giving him room to think, to breathe, to feel present. During the day, everything was fast, conversations, tasks, responsibilities, but at night, winter slowed everything down to a calm whisper. As he passed the small neighborhood park, something caught his attention. The park was nearly empty, just a few footprints leading to the playground and then disappearing into the snow. But under an old lamppost, warm and golden against the cold blue evening, stood a wooden bench, and on that bench lay a small notebook. It wasn't large, and it wasn't bright. Just a simple pale blue notebook with soft white dots on the cover that looked like falling snow. It seemed almost misplaced, too delicate for the cold open air. Evan stopped and looked around, but there was no one else in sight. No dog walkers, no children, no late evening joggers. Just silence and the soft glow of the lamp. Curiosity nudged him forward. He brushed away the thin layer of snow from the notebook and picked it up carefully. It felt cool against his gloves, but something about it made him pause before opening it, as if he was stepping into a moment meant for stillness. Inside, the pages were filled with handwritten thoughts, not diary entries, not poems, more like gentle reflections. Short lines, each written with care, each carrying a quiet, thoughtful tone. Evan read the first one he saw. Winter slows the world so we can finally hear our own thoughts. He felt the truth of that line settle in his chest. Something inside him softened. He turned the page and found more. Some days are made for movement. Some days are made for stillness. Another. If you listen closely, silence has its own kind of warmth. Evan sat down on the bench without even realizing he had decided to. The cold wood pressed through his coat, but he didn't mind. The words in the notebook felt like a conversation, quiet, gentle, honest, and he found himself reading slowly, letting each sentence settle. There was no name in the notebook, no clue about who had written it, but somehow it didn't matter. The reflections felt universal, as if they were written for whoever needed them. A stranger walking home on a winter night, someone who needed a reminder to slow down. After a few minutes, Evan closed the notebook and placed it exactly where he found it. It didn't feel like something he should take. It felt like something meant to stay, waiting for the next person who might need it. He stood up, took a slow breath, and continued on his way. The snow still fell softly, the city still whispered around him, but something inside him felt lighter, as if the notebook had left a quiet glow in his thoughts. The next evening, Evan found himself walking toward the same park again. He wasn't sure why. He had no specific plan, no clear intention, but the memory of the notebook and the quiet comfort its words had given him stayed with him throughout the day. It felt natural to return, as if some part of him hoped the moment wasn't finished yet. The sky was darker tonight, a deeper shade of blue that almost blended with the roofs of the houses. Snowflakes drifted down slowly, unhurried, as if they were taking their time to choose exactly where to land. The park was even quieter than before. The playground sat empty, the swings gently swaying in the light wind, the trees standing tall and still under their delicate coats of frost. When Evan reached the bench under the lamppost, his breath caught slightly. The notebook was still there, but something was different. The notebook wasn't closed tightly like before. It lay slightly open, its pages fluttering gently in the cold breeze. Someone had definitely come by and read it since he last did. Maybe they had left something. Maybe they had taken something. Evan stepped closer, feeling a soft wave of anticipation. He sat down on the bench and picked up the notebook. On the first new page, there was a fresh line written in the same neat handwriting. If you found this notebook, I hope it brought you a moment of peace. Evan smiled naturally without thinking about it. He continued reading, turning page after page, finding more gentle, thoughtful messages. Not every day needs to be productive. Some days exist simply to breathe. Winter shows us the beauty of slowing down. Even silence can be a companion. Each sentence carried the same warm, quiet tone he remembered, a voice he couldn't hear but somehow felt deeply. He paused for a moment, looking at the soft glow of the lamppost above him, the falling snow, the stillness of the park. There was something magical about reading words that perfectly matched the atmosphere around him. It made him feel connected to an unknown writer, someone who understood how to see the beauty in a winter evening. Evan reached into his coat pocket, searching for a pen. He hesitated only for a second before writing on a blank page. Thank you for these words. They were exactly what I needed. He wasn't sure why he wrote it. He wasn't even sure if the writer would ever come back to see it. But it felt right. It felt like adding his voice to a quiet conversation that stretched across time, across strangers, across winter moments. After writing the message, he placed the notebook back gently, exactly as he had found it. Then he sat for a moment longer, watching the snow collect on the back of the bench, watching it settle on the pages before closing the cover lightly. As he stood and walked away, the world looked a little different. Not brighter, not louder, just softer. As if the simple act of sharing a single sentence had made winter feel a little warmer. Evan walked home slowly, letting the cold air fill his lungs and clear his mind. And though he didn't say it out loud, he knew he would return again. There was something unfinished about the moment. Something quietly inviting, like the first lines of a story still being written. The following evening arrived with a deeper chill in the air. The kind of cold that made windows fog from the inside and turned every exhale into a cloud of silver mist. Evan wrapped his scarf a little tighter as he stepped outside, but even the sharp winter breeze couldn't shake the quiet anticipation he felt. Something within him had shifted, a sense of gentle curiosity, a pull toward the park, toward the bench, toward the mysterious notebook that seemed to appear exactly when he needed it. As he walked, the sky hung low with heavy clouds, soft and gray, ready to release another wave of slow, drifting snow. Streetlights glowed like small lanterns guiding him forward. The world felt muted again, wrapped in winter's familiar silence. When Evan reached the park, the lamppost stood glowing as always, casting its warm circle of light on the snow-covered bench. But this time, something immediately caught his eye. The notebook was gone. For a moment, he felt a quiet disappointment settle in his chest. It was strange, he thought, how quickly something so simple could become meaningful. He had only discovered the notebook a couple of days ago, yet it had already become part of his evening, a small ritual, a moment of calm, a connection to someone unseen, but deeply understood. He stepped closer and noticed a faint outline in the snow where the notebook had rested. But now, in its place, there was something new. A small folded piece of paper lay on the bench, weighed down by a tiny pebble so it wouldn't blow away with the wind. Evan removed the pebble and gently unfolded the paper. The handwriting was the same, soft, neat, and warm. "Thank you for writing back. Your words reached me. Winter feels lighter when kindness is shared." Evan exhaled slowly, a mix of surprise and warmth spreading through him. He read the lines again, letting each one sink in. This wasn't just a notebook left behind. It was a conversation, a real exchange even though the voices never met. Below the message, there was another short line. "I hope your days are a little softer now." Evan looked around the park. No one was there. No footsteps approached. Just the gentle fall of snowflakes and the quiet hum of the city beyond. He sat down on the bench, feeling the cold wood beneath him, grounding him in the moment. He held the note in his hands, thinking about how rare it was to feel understood by someone you had never seen. Someone who didn't ask for anything, didn't expect anything, just offered warmth in the middle of winter. He reached into his pocket again, hoping he still had the pen he used the night before. He did. On the back of the paper, he wrote, "Your message meant more than you know. Thank you for sharing this moment with me." He folded the note gently and placed it on the bench, weighing it down with the same small pebble. For a long moment, he just sat there, letting the cold air brush against his face, feeling the quiet beauty of the evening settle around him. Then he stood up, gave the bench one last look, and began walking home slowly. The snow deepened beneath his steps, and the world around him seemed to glow softly with each passing minute. As he left the park, Evan couldn't help but wonder, was the person behind the notebook someone he had passed on the street? Someone who lived nearby? Someone watching over moments like this, offering gentle reminders to strangers who needed them? He didn't know. But he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. A sense of connection, fragile but real, woven through winter's quiet silence. He knew he would return tomorrow. Not out of habit, but out of hope. The next evening came with a heavier snowfall, the kind that softens every shape and sound, turning familiar streets into quiet, dreamlike paths. Evan hesitated for a moment before leaving his apartment, not because of the cold, but because he wasn't sure what he hoped to find. The notebook was gone. The note had been answered. Maybe the moment had passed. Maybe the story between two strangers had already reached its natural end. But something inside him urged him to go anyway. Not for the notebook, not even for another message, but for the feeling the park had given him these past few nights. A sense of stillness, connection, and gentle clarity he rarely felt in his busy everyday life. When he reached the park, the lamppost was shining brightly through the thick curtain of falling snow. The bench beneath it almost looked like it had been painted white, every surface covered in a fresh layer of untouched snow. It didn't look like anyone had been there yet. Evan brushed off a small corner of the bench and sat down. For a moment, he simply listened to the soft whisper of snow landing on the ground. No notebook. No note. No pebble. Only the quiet hum of winter. He wasn't disappointed, at least not in the way he expected. Instead, he felt a sense of acceptance, as if the moment had completed itself naturally. Maybe the writer had left the final message. Maybe the exchange had served its purpose. Maybe it wasn't meant to continue forever. As he sat there, Evan noticed something near the base of the bench, a small object partially buried under the snow. He leaned down and gently brushed it off. It was a tiny wooden bookmark. Simple, smooth, handmade. On one side was a small carved pattern that looked like falling snowflakes. On the other, a short inscription burned softly into the wood. For the one who listened. Evan held the bookmark in his hand, feeling its gentle warmth despite the cold. It wasn't as mysterious as the notebook, nor as personal as the handwritten messages, but it carried the same feeling, a quiet kindness, a silent thank you, a small connection offered without expecting anything in return. He turned it over again and again, letting the weight of the moment settle in. This was the final message, he realized. Not written in ink, but carved into something real, something lasting. Something meant to stay with him. He slipped the bookmark into his coat pocket and leaned back, watching the snow swirl under the lamppost's warm glow. The world looked peaceful, soft, and somehow full of unspoken stories, of strangers crossing paths without ever meeting, of gentle gifts left behind in the quiet of winter. Evan stood up and took one last long look at the bench. It would be just a bench to most people, ordinary, silent, unnoticed. But to him it had become a place of connection, reflection, and unexpected warmth. He walked out of the park slowly, his steps deep in the fresh snow. The bookmark rested lightly in his pocket, reminding him with every movement that sometimes the smallest encounters leave the deepest impressions. As he reached the edge of the park, he turned back for a moment. The snowfall blurred the lampost's light into a soft halo. It looked almost magical, as if winter itself had been part of the conversation. Evan smiled quietly to himself. Some moments don't need explanations. Some stories begin and end without a name. And some winter nights stay with us long after the snow has melted. My friends, before we finish today's episode, I want to leave you with a quiet reflection, something gentle to carry with you into the rest of your day or your evening, wherever you may be now. Winter has a way of teaching us things we don't learn during any other season. It slows the world just enough for us to see what we usually overlook. It softens the noise, the pressure, the expectations. It gives us permission to pause, truly pause, and simply be present with ourselves. And sometimes, in these small pockets of stillness, something meaningful finds us. A thought, a memory, a moment of clarity. Or maybe, like in our story, a connection that arrives quietly and unexpectedly. What happened to Evan is something many of us experience in our own way. Not a mysterious notebook on a bench, maybe, but those small, surprising moments that shift something inside us. A kind word from a stranger, a message we needed to hear. A quiet walk that clears our mind. A soft reminder that we are never as alone as we sometimes feel. In winter, these moments feel even stronger, maybe because the world is silent enough for us to finally notice them. And as you listen to this story, I hope you felt that quiet warmth too. A softness. A gentleness. A sense that not everything has to be rushed or solved or explained. Some things can simply be felt. Learning English can be the same. It doesn't always need to be intense, strict, or stressful. Sometimes your best progress happens when you listen calmly, when you allow the language to wash over you without effort, when you let meaning come naturally instead of forcing it. Every minute you spent here today matters. Every sentence you understood matters. Every moment of calm you allowed yourself matters. You showed up. You listened. You opened a space inside yourself for growth, quietly without pressure. And that is something to be truly proud of. As we close this winter episode, I want you to take a deep breath, slowly, softly. Feel the warmth of your own progress. Feel the comfort of having given yourself this time. And remember that you can return to this peaceful place whenever you need it. If you enjoyed this story, or if it brought you even a small moment of peace, don't forget to subscribe to English Unlocked. This podcast is here for you, to support you, to inspire you, to walk with you through your English journey, one gentle step at a time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for sharing this quiet winter moment with me. Until next time, my friends. Stay warm, stay kind to yourself, and let winter remind you that peace is always closer than it seems. Goodbye for now.